warrant article, which could be, if passed, the first step towards having a solar array at the landfill. So the PowerPoint attempts to specific questions that were raised at the first meeting that we had with the Board of Selectmen, and some others that I thought may come up from people. And we have a few pictures of the area and what it could look like. And if people have questions, feel free to ask. Okay? So this is an aerial shot, Google Earth, of what the landfill looks like presently, capped. Here's where the transfer station is. There's a road that makes its way up. And presently, there's just grass growing up there. I'm sorry?
The leaf and yard waste areas of the...
This is the swap area on the left.
That's the swap area on the left.
No, at the very top, the more brown. That's the part that's the yard. Oh, where we dump the leaves.
I think so. I think so, but I'm not certain. So part of my daily routine, seems like daily routine, is fielding questions from solar developers, asking about building solar arrays at the landfill and on various town-owned buildings. A week doesn't go by and I don't get anywhere from 6 to 10 calls from people. So we've had on and off discussions between the light plant and the town several times over the years regarding a possible solar array at the landfill. And for various reasons, nothing has ever come to fruition. As recently as spring 2014, the town was approached by a developer who made a proposal for installing a solar array at the landfill and on the middle school and the high school. A few meetings were held between the developer, the DPW, myself, the school department, and the town administrator. A number of meetings were held, and again, nothing came out of those meetings in terms of a solar array being built. So across the state, there are 42 municipal light plants. There's a number of them, probably 6 or 7 that I'm familiar with, who are in the process of negotiating with solar developers over the possibility of putting solar arrays on their landfills. Braintree has successfully built one. You can see it on Route 3 when you're heading south on the right-hand side, just after that Toyota dealership with the big flag. If you haven't noticed, you take a quick peek as you're going by, not too long, I don't want any accidents, and you'll be able to see the solar array. So I happen to sit on the town's Energy Action Committee, and one of the items that comes up with some regularity is, how come there's no solar array at the landfill? So this past fall, we approached the town, said, what do you think? Given the fairly close by and successful experience of the town of Braintree, we thought, let's give it a whirl. So we put a letter together, sent it to the town administrator, myself, chair of the committee, one other person, met with the town administrator. What we talked to him about was the same type of concept that had been successfully negotiated in several other towns, specifically Braintree as one. And that concept is the developer builds the solar array, they sell all the electric output to us, and the developer makes pilot payments in lieu of taxes, to the town for the ability to use their landfill to build the solar array. That's what we presented to Ted. He was amenable to it. He made it clear that if it was going to happen, it was going to be a light plant and Energy Action Committee initiative. It wasn't his. And basically said, go for it. So that's what we did. So the first step in this process to possibly getting one built is to get permission from the town to use the landfill to build a solar array. And I hit the black screen button. Okay, so the HMLP's attorney reached out to the town's real estate attorney, Susan Murphy, and to the town's general counsel, John Coughlin, I think. I know the last name's Coughlin. I think it's John. Anyway, Susan was the opinion that given current Massachusetts law, there was not a need or a requirement for town meeting to authorize the type of arrangement that we're talking about. When it was presented to the town's general counsel, he had a different opinion, and he felt and strongly that the town meeting should have a say in whether or not this was going to happen. So the town's general counsel and HMLP's attorney put this warrant article together. And I'll bore you and read it to you because the slide's a little busy and I don't know if you can see it. Will the town authorize but not require, pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 40, Section 15A, and all other applicable laws, the Board of Selectmen to enter into an agreement to transfer, in part, the care, custody, management, and control from the Board of the Selectmen to the Hingham Municipal Lighting Plant of a portion of a parcel of land consisting of the surface of the capped landfill being located on Town of Hingham Assessors Map 106-0-7, and to authorize the Board of Selectmen to enter into all agreements and execute any and all instruments as may be necessary to effect said partial transfer of said parcel of land on such terms and conditions as the Board of Selectmen deems in the best interest of the town, for the limited purpose of allowing the Hingham Municipal Lighting Plant to enter into a license, lease, and or other agreement with a third party for the construction, operation, and maintenance of a solar generating facility on said parcel of land to generate electricity for distribution by the Hingham Municipal Lighting Plant or act on anything relating thereto.
Well, I wasn't broken up into a few sentences.
I don't know, Brad, why don't they break them up into multiple sentences? There you go. If Brad had written it, would have been multiple sentences. So, a couple of the things that I'd like to point out, based on some feedback I've heard, is, oops, let me go, where am I? To transfer in part the care, custody, and control a portion of the land. So we're not getting the whole landfill. We're not interested in the whole landfill. The only thing that we're interested in, or the developer will be interested in, I would expect, is the top, the capped. For the limited purpose of allowing, or it's the sole purpose? Parcel of land on such a the best of the time for the limited purpose. Somewhere here, let me find it.
Under the word Board of Selectmen.
Oh, for the limited purpose, thank you. For the limited purpose of allowing the light plant to enter, blah, 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 for the solar facility. So I have had people suggest to me that if this doesn't fly, and apparently there is some opinion out there that this language would allow a developer, if the solar array does not get built, to do something else. That's not the case. You know, this is written specifically for the limited Board of Selectmen. Right. So if for whatever reason this doesn't come to fruition, it all goes back to as it was before we started going down this road. What's necessary to move this project forward? Again, a very busy slide. The first thing that has to happen, town meeting has to vote to pass the warrant article. If that doesn't happen, that's it, it's done. That's the first thing. First of many, many steps that and hurdles that have to get jumped over before this can come to fruition. Per town council, HMLP and the town will sign an agreement. This agreement will clarify who is liable for what. HMLP will be liable for damage to the landfill from the solar facility, and the town will be responsible for continuing to operate and maintain the capped landfill. So the town feels strongly, as they should, that if anything untoward happens up there while this landfill's getting built, it's on the light plant, but oh, by the way, it's really going to be the developer, because the developer is building this thing, the light plant is not. So if something goes south in terms of the capped landfill being damaged, the agreement that we're going to, part of the agreement that we're going to insist on is going to have the developer be responsible for that. Because capped landfills, if they get damaged, are very expensive to repair. We put an anemometer up there probably about 6 years ago. While it was being built, the contractor working for us punctured the capped landfill, and it was literally tens of thousands of dollars to fix it. Light plant doesn't want to get into that. Just as the town doesn't want to be responsible for anything that happens while this, if something should happen while this solar array gets built, the light plant is not interested, thank you very much, for being responsible to operate and maintain that capped landfill. So we will be responsible, the light plant, the developer will be responsible if anything gets damaged while it's being built or operated. The town is going to continue to be responsible to maintain and operate the landfill. So we've had the town meeting warrant vote. It passes. The town and the light plant and the developer are able to come to terms over who's responsible for what at various points of the construction and operation. A second hurdle. Next thing, the light plant's going to issue a request for proposals to interested developers. So we're going to put it out there to the world. Okay, here we go. Here's the size. And we'll get proposals from interested developers. Now,
Do you know the size?
I do.
Okay.
I do. But I'm not, I do. But the developers are going to be responsible for creating their bids. So, you know, they're going to try and get I would expect, they're going to try and get as many panels in this, on the top, not on the sides, as they can, because the more panels they get, more electricity they can generate, more I get, more money that they would ultimately get.
Well, how do you prevent the penetration of the membrane when you install these systems?
They sit on the surface. They don't bury them into the ground.
So if you have a really big wind like a hurricane.
Yeah, I mean, you know, solar arrays have been getting built on landfills for tens of years. You know, I'm not a mechanical engineer, and that's another thing why the light plant is not interested in building it, because if something goes south, we don't want to be, you know, we don't want to be responsible for that.
Well, I can help you out there a little bit. I think it would be a balanced system, which there's no penetration into the ground.
Could everybody identify themselves and I'm just a resident, I'm interested, I'd so like Mr. Henry to finish.
I'm sorry.
And then, I mean, I'm not running a meeting.
Yeah, no, well, I mean, I did say, you know, Otto asked a question, and,
I don't know who any people are.
well, he's going to introduce himself.
I'm sorry. My name is Ryan Lally. I work for Ridgewood, which is a solar developer. I'm from Hingham, so I'm interested to come to this meeting because I want to learn and maybe get an opportunity to do solar in Hingham. So I've done a lot of these systems before, and a lot of them are ballasted systems with no penetration into the ground. And it's about 3 pounds per square inch. And like Paul said, these arrays now at this point, they can handle a lot of wind. I mean, we've done thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of panels, and I think we've had damages to 5 to 6 panels right now in our company over the last 5 years. So the technology has come there at this point where, unless it's a major, major storm, there's really not much to worry about.
What wind speed are you designed for with the ballasting system?
I think they're guaranteed up to 80 miles per hour. So.
And that's 5 panels, not 5 landfills.
5 panels, yes, solar panels.
Yeah, well, I mean, I did say if people have questions, I did. So after we've gotten our request for proposals, we've selected a developer, we're going to negotiate a purchase power agreement. And we are going to buy, as I've said, all the output of the facility for a fixed period of time, subject to certain terms and conditions. Developer will make fixed pilot payments to the town, payments in lieu of taxes. And HMLP will draft the necessary agreements, since we're the ones buying all the output and interconnecting the solar array to our electrical distribution system. Presuming town meeting, presuming agreements between the town and the light plant, we've selected a developer, presuming we can come to terms on the PPA, which is where earlier efforts have kind of fallen apart over the years. You know, the light plant and the town, or the town and developers were not able to come to terms, financial terms, on, you know, what these things are worth. So presuming all those things happen, then the developer is going to permit the facility, which basically means they're going to have to take out all the permits that give them the ability to build it. Solar facilities may be subject to local zoning approval and Massachusetts DEP approval if built on a capped landfill. Now, in terms of local zoning approval, I can't specifically say. I'm not an attorney. I've not done it in town before. My understanding is that they are, but I don't know that for certain. And that would be, you know, a call of the planning board, the zoning board, some board besides HMLP. I do know that they have to get Massachusetts DEP approval, because we had to get DEP approval when we built our anemometer at the landfill 6 or 7 years ago. So the risk of permitting and constructing the facility is on the developer, not HMLP and its ratepayers. Now, permitting these, you know, the permitting process is a lot of money. And given the arrangement or the way that we see this thing happening, is that risk, that financial risk, is not going to be borne by the light plant. It's going to be borne by the developer. Meaning, if he spends $100,000 trying to get this thing permitted, and for whatever reason it doesn't happen, that $100,000 does not come out of the ratepayer's pocket. It comes out of the developers. All the risk that way is on them. And if it doesn't get permitted, it's not going to get built. Now, this came up at the meeting with the selectmen a couple weeks ago. There were questions about, well, what's the business relationship between the light plant and the town on this venture? There really isn't one. The article is proposed, per town council's write-up, transfers custody and control of the surface of the landfill from the town to HMLP for the sole purpose of putting a solar facility on it. If HMLP can't reach acceptable agreements with the developer, or the developer can't get the facility permitted, no solar array gets built, and like I've said a couple of times, it goes back to the way it was before we started down this road. Town council has said an agreement must be reached which releases the town from any liability for damage to the landfill from construction of the array or from the panels being sited on it. So again, town council has insisted that part of any agreement, that is going to be part of any agreement. And the that is, if anything gets damaged up there while this array gets built, it's not on the town to fix, it's on the developer. And HMLP is going to have no responsibility for normal landfill operations and maintenance. So you'll not see my smiling face at the swap shop. What's the business relationship between HMLP and the developer? We're going to negotiate a contract whereby we will buy all of the electric output of the facility. This is something that we do all the time. We're constantly getting and evaluating proposals from generators to buy power. You know, the attorney that we use, you know, she does it in her sleep practically. It's something that we're very accustomed to, so, you know, you should feel comfortable in that we know what we're doing with this, and I'm not the least bit afraid to walk away. You know, I'm not going to make a bad deal just for the sake of making a deal. If it's not a good deal, it's a financial deal, it's not going to happen. There's also going to be a license or lease to the developer that will give them the right to put the panels on the landfill. The developer will own and operate the solar facility. So naturally, the developer, if he is going to invest who knows how much money to get it permitted and built, he's going to want to know that he has a right to have his facilities at that landfill for X number of years, probably somewhere around 20. All of HMLP's obligations under these agreements are contingent upon the developer getting the necessary permits to build and operate the solar facility. What input will citizens have on the permitting process? This came up at the meeting with the selectmen a couple weeks ago. Citizens are going to have the same input they have on any other proposed construction under the permitting processes. Now, I had at least a couple people ask me, how come the abutters didn't get, you know, the certified mail notices of this meeting tonight? The reason for that is we're not trying to, this warrant article is not about building something. Notices to abutters go out when something's going to be built. This warrant article only is designed to give us the right to go solicit bids and potentially negotiate with the developer. So the abutter notice, the formal abutter notice, that's part of a permitting process. You know, there's a new development going to come in town, there's a new store coming in town. That process begins when a builder or a developer has a set of plans to build that CVS, to build that apartment building, all that type of stuff. So at the point that somebody has something to present, to possibly build, that's when the formal notification process will happen. How big will it be? Now, I don't have an agreement in place with anybody, so I can't tell you it's going to be 50 panels, it's going to be 100 panels, it's going to be 500 panels. But I can tell you with 100% certainty that it will only be on the top of the landfill. And I say that based on a number, probably 15 conversations I've had over the years with solar developers who have said putting a solar array on a capped landfill, Otto, to your question, how do you secure them? It just doesn't work because the side of the hill is sloped so much you would have to, you know, penetrate the capped landfill to affix it to the side of the hill. It just doesn't work. The finances don't work. And if the finances don't work, it's not going to happen. Now, there's software out there that gives you the ability to design a solar system. And I've gotten 3 rough estimates based on, you know, people can, you know, Google Earth, figure out, you know, how big the space is and about how many panels and how much output you can get from them. So I've gotten 3 different estimates, and they all kind of come around to about 600 kW in terms of output. 600 kW. Now, just to kind of give you a sense of what that is in relation to the town's annual electric consumption, In 2015, our consumption in the town was about 208 million kilowatts. A 600 kW system, which is basically what we're talking about up there, is probably going to get us about 800,000 kW annually. Where will it sit on the landfill and what will it look like? So this is that Google Earth picture that we started this presentation with, and I got 3 different possible. I have 3 different versions of what it could possibly look like. This is one, from a helicopter above the landfill. Here's a second, and in both of them, do you see how it's only on the top? It's not going down the sides. Here's a second, and here's a third. And this is, a proposal that we got, spring 2014 timeframe.
Is this flat to the ground?
I'm sorry?
Is this flat to the ground?
Is it latched to the ground? Flat. No, they have a bit of a, you'll see in a minute.
Okay.
I have pictures of them. But these pictures would be like if you were looking at it from up above. So one of the things that I thought people might be interested in is, how far away from houses might this thing be? So again, we went to Google Earth, and this house right here at Ridgewood Crossing kind of looks like it's the closest. There's one over here at I think that's Cranberry Lane. I think this one's probably closer. So I wanted to give you a worst case figure, and it's 617 feet away. And that's from the closest corner of where the solar array would be to the closest house. 617 feet. Correct.
What's the other street on the right?
I'm sorry?
The street on
On the right? I don't.
the right.
Does it come off? Yeah. So then I wondered, so you got this big old landfill, kind of small blue hills, how much higher is it from the houses at Ridgewood Crossing? So we looked at Massachusetts GIS system. We went out and took some field measurements, and we're guessing that from around here to around here, it's probably there is a 40-foot difference, or the height of a 4-story building. So the top of the landfill is approximately 4 stories, if you think of a building, 4 stories higher than the houses at Ridgewood Crossing. Per Google Earth, where the following pictures and houses are located relative to the landfill. So another one of the things that came up at the selectmen's meeting was, people wanted to see, well, what does it look like up there? And what's it going to look like if these things get built? So we went up to Ridgewood Crossing and we took pictures from a bunch of different spots, and you'll see them in a second. So this is number 10 Ridgewood, 26, 32, and 46. And there are some other pictures there, and you'll see them in a second. And these pictures are from these folks' houses looking up to the landfill. So there are 3 renderings. I'm sorry, 3 houses with renderings. You'll see a picture of the landfill as it is today. You're going to see a picture of the landfill with the a rendering. It's not the real thing. It's a rendering of the solar array with trees in front of it. And then you're going to see a picture with nothing in front of it. Because I've gotten mixed opinions and reviews from developers that I've talked to over whether or not you can actually plant something on a capped landfill. So I didn't want to just present a picture of a solar array with trees in front of it if in fact we can't build it. Because I want everybody, truly, nothing up my sleeves. It is what it is, and however the vote goes, that's how the vote goes. I don't want anybody to feel that we tried slipping something by somebody. So here's the first picture we took, and this is from a view of the landfill from number 8 Ridgewood. And in this picture, the camera was on zoom when this picture was taken, so it looks kind of close. And as you can see, there is some growth between there and the landfill.
The house is actually the end of the
Well, I think this house here is, but this growth is between oops.
I understand that.
Yeah. Okay, and there's the landfill. Here's the top of the landfill up there. Now, this is the rendering that we had with trees in front of the solar panels. And here's the array, and here's number 8. Well,
So it's not a four-story building from the height that would be where the house is from?
well, it is. Now there's coming down the landfill. The landfill comes down, bottoms out, and then it starts to come back up again. And the come back up again is where we took our measurements. And we didn't go to the depths, So this is what it would look like, again, a rendering of what it would look like with trees in front of it.
Wouldn't the trees around it kind of prevent the solar?
Well, yeah, but the trees would be put out far enough, and the panels would be back far enough. So these trees are arborvitaes, so they're not going to be, a huge pine tree in 20 years that's going to. Because you're right. That's kind of the idea. We don't want shade, and we can, trim them, keep them from getting to be too tall, and that I say, that presumes that we're able to actually plant. And this is what it would look like with nothing blocking. This is the rendering of what it would look like with nothing blocking it. Now these panels, somebody at some point asked me about, what about glare? Well, the panels are built to absorb the sunlight, and that's what creates the electricity. It's not like a mirror that, light's going to hit it and it's going to shine off of it. The panel is designed to take that all in. And there really isn't glare with these things.
Just a question there too. The rendering here has the panels at an angle. Is that how
Can't hear the question.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry, in the rendering here, the panels appear to be at an angle.
They are.
Are they going to be designed to capture the sun, or are they going to be more facing northward, so that you're not looking actually at the side of the panels, you're rather looking at it from underneath?
I would expect, and it's on the developer, but I would expect, and there's at least 2 developers in the room, they would be built at an angle. And possibly, some arrays get built now so that they move and they can kind of follow the sun a little bit. Now, I have no idea. No, Roger? No? Okay. So this is what it would look like with no trees, a rendering of what it would look like with no trees. Now this is a view of the landfill from 10 looking at 12. So this is 12, number 12 Ridgewood, and the picture was obviously taken here. So 10 is here somewhere, 12 is here, picture taken, whoops. Picture, I'm giving away all my, can't surprise you guys with anything if I keep hitting that wrong button. But, so again, that's the landfill from the area between 10 and 12 Ridgewood. And you see this ballast in here? That would be the lowest spot. And when we took our measurements, top of the landfill too, we did not go to here, but we measured from around here. And this is a view of the landfill from the right side of number 26. And again, the pictures were taken in February, and you really can't see it through these trees. This is a view of the landfill from the right side of 32 Ridgewood. And here's the top of the landfill here. Here's a rendering from that same spot, that same view, of the array with plantings in front of it. Whoops. And there's the trees, and the array would be behind it. You can kind of see right in here, maybe. And now this is the array with no trees. Yep.
Perhaps instead of planting trees around that area when you've got a couch.
Please use the mic.
Kind of as a thought about it, trees have roots, they grow,
Yep.
you can't predict. And so as a suggestion, maybe the homeowners that abut, if they are offended by the view of the dump, perhaps the mitigation or whatever, working with people, you could provide them more trees for their yards. So they're not looking out on anything because, they'll always have something there.
Mm-hmm.
So that might be easier since you have such good tree coverage to begin with.
Right.
And it is a dump. I mean, we know it's a capped landfill. Then you're good on both ways.
Mm-hmm. I had that same thought.
On the dump cap, which direction is south facing?
This is
The opposite, that's north. That's fine.
Now that's
You're
facing.
looking north.
We're looking
That's
north.
facing north. We're looking north.
Right. Did you get that? Here's a view of the landfill from the front of 46 Ridgewood, kind of up the hill a little bit, looking down at 46. And there's the landfill right there.
This is the view from 46.
From 46. Oh, from 46. That house is not 46. Okay, gotcha. Thank you. And that's what it says. And that's what it looks like. That's the rendering of it, what it would look like with the trees in front of the arrays, and that's with no trees in front of it. What do solar panels look like up close? So we went to the solar array in Braintree, and we took a few pictures. So as you can see, they are on an angle. This is the ballast system. It's another capped landfill, similar to what's, here in Hingham. And they've been in operation now for probably about 5 or 6 months. Again, more pictures of the Braintree solar array. Looks like they're probably about 8 feet off the ground. Is the cement, almost like a Jersey barrier type thing that looks like they get mounted to? Is that pretty common for it to be that way? Yep. And one more.
Paul, you might mention that they're angled to the south. I'll let him just repeat the point.
Yeah, so these
You'll be
panels,
looking at the back of it, you'll be looking at this front panel side. but you can repeat the point if you like. Necessary.
The panels are facing south,
Yeah.
Makes sense.
and I won't make any smart remarks about how cloudy it is and what kind of electricity we get that day. Questions? Would you, the mic? Please.
I'm just wondering if the light plant is obliged to buy the electricity from the array, and if so, what kind of price they...
So we, given we are a municipal light plant, we have the exclusive right to buy and sell electricity for the town of Hingham. So we will be buying all of it. That's part of the deal.
You have the right, but do you have the obligation?
We will have the obligation.
For how long? And at what
Subject
price?
to terms of the negotiations.
And same for the price?
The same for the price. And, you know, so if you're...
Adjustable?
I'm sorry?
Adjustable price?
They can be. They, you know, we would prefer fixed, but it's all up for grabs that way. It's...
I've heard there's a federal subsidy that ends after a period of time.
The subsidy, so the light plant obviously is a government organization, so we don't pay federal taxes. So that 30% tax credit means nothing to us because we're not paying in taxes anyway. But I would expect that's something that the developer takes advantage of.
While it's there.
Why is what?
While it is there.
Well, while it's there? I don't know how the tax laws are written for that. I mean, I don't pay them, so I've never had occasion to have to try and figure it out.
Thank you.
You won't. Roger?
Do you want me to answer that question?
Sure.
So,
I appreciate you coming up to the mic, so I don't have to repeat it out.
and I think we have another developer here, I understand. So the typical term for a solar project like this will be a power purchase agreement of 20 years, and the prices for the municipal deals that have gone through, I think, have been in the range of 6 to 10 cents a kilowatt hour. For the deals that have been done. Now, in Massachusetts, the incentive regimes and the programs in place are changing, and they're being rewritten as we speak. And so this project will likely be under the new regime as it comes, what they're calling the SREC 3. And so that'll have different terms, but it'll be somewhere in that range when you take into account the tax incentives that are available, as well as the renewable portfolio standard and the different revenue streams that are available. It allows municipal utilities like Hingham Light to get a pretty competitive price for the power that compares roughly with what they're otherwise paying. Is that an accurate statement?
That's what it's like. Yes, ma'am.
All right, so given the fact that this one?
Sure.
Given the fact that we all have lived here and we've gone through the Aquarian water rate hikes, as a town taxpayer homeowner, I'd like to be assured that since we're obliged to buy this power, that we are fixed for the 20-year period of time and that we don't go through these tremendous rate hikes that we've had, you know, with this, you know,
Sure.
with Aquarian, because we're the fixed, you are fixed. We don't have another option.
Correct. So I guess I can only say that the last rate increase we had was 2008. That was the last time we adjusted rates, so that's 8 years ago. You know, if you read the paper at all, you've seen for probably the last 4 or 5 years, you know, the investor-owned utilities, you know, raising their rates, their supply portion of their rates, 25 and 30%. So, you know, fortunately for everybody in the room that lives in Hingham, you haven't seen those sorts of increases. So I can't say that prices aren't going to go up, but I can say that the terms of this agreement will be that the price won't go up if we negotiate it that way. And if it, you know, as this gentleman asked, you know, they could be for a fixed, that's what we're going to look for, a fixed amount. But sometimes the rates, the amount that you're going to pay is going to change. It's all subject to negotiation. And, I've said it a couple of times, if it doesn't work financially, we're not doing it. I'm not going to make, as I've said, I'm not going to make a bad deal just so I can make a deal. Because that's not why I'm here. We're here to reliable service, keep the lights on, keep the prices down. That's our goal. Part of that package is to secure as much renewable energy as we can and still keep the prices down, keep the lights on. Brad.
So Paul, maybe another way of looking at this then is we're anticipating an 800,000.
Please, microphone down.
I think it's for his recording purposes, not for the audience. Sorry, so I'll speak up. So another way of looking at this perhaps is we have an 800,000 generation out of an annual 208 million.
Right.
So we're less than 0.5%.
We are at 0.0038.
Right. So even if the solar cost negotiated a fixed rate was slightly higher than the average rate HMLP pays, you don't anticipate an ultimate impact on the actual rate we ratepayers pay as a result of this project. Is that correct?
This deal with this size array, it's not going to move the needle, as the expression goes. It was, what was it, 208 million
208 million
kilowatts annually, and the array will produce somewhere in the area of 800,000. 208 million, 800,000.
So why?
So why?
Do it.
Well, the town's going to get some money out of this, for one thing. I could tell you Braintree's, and again, it's all subject to negotiations, right? So, and as Roger alluded, there's, the rules, the legislative rules have changed, so it's kind of a shifting sand. But I could tell you that the Braintree deal, their array is probably twice as big as what this one is, and the town is going to see, over the course of 20 years, payments equaling $1 million. So if you kind of do the math, and I can't say that it will work that same way as that mathematical equation. So if I divide the million by 2, because we're half as big, we're going to see 500,000. But it's going to be somewhere around there, I would expect. And again, if it doesn't work, it's not going to happen. When I say work, that's a big consideration for me. It's not going to happen. Yeah, maybe. We
can move the mic so you can stay in your seat.
Well, I'm already up. Okay. Hi, I'm Ann Fanton. I live in Ridgewood Crossing. I'll introduce myself. First, I want to say thank you to Paul and you, because I think this presentation, it's answered a lot of the questions that I had at the Selectmen's meeting and that I've had, and I found it very helpful. I'm certainly interested in what's good for the town. I'm certainly interested in what's good for the environment, so certainly supportive of solar array. I do live at number 46, so I've gotten to see the view from there. Although I think I'm not that tall, but I have just a couple more questions that really get down to my interest, and I think the interest of some of the other abutters, in knowing if there are going to be public hearings at the time of permitting. You've clarified when they would be. For example, you don't seem to be sure, and I'm not sure, whether there are any local regulations that will be triggered by the permit. Whether it's zoning or something else, there may only, for example, be a DEP permit. That's a possibility. So in the case of a DEP permit, we won't receive any notice, I don't believe. So that's the question I would have at the Selectmen's and the Advisory Committee meeting tomorrow night. Maybe somebody will know it. So I would like to be sure that we have an opportunity to see the final designs and comment, particularly with regard to, whether trees can be planted, whether they need to be, because that will show us what it's ideally going to look like if they come in with something like this. And then I wanted to clarify, if I hear you correctly, it will be the developer that would be filing the permits. Who would be holding the hearings forgetting DEP for the moment, because if they have one, we're not going to know about it,
Well,
probably.
let me speak to the DEP specifically, because I do know specifically about that. When we built the anemometer at the landfill, we did have to do the notification to abutters.
Yes, that was in '07?
About
'07, I
2008
think.
timeframe, maybe?
Yeah, I
2008,
wasn't there then, but,
2009?
yeah. You did, but in this case, who would do it? Because you've made it
Would be the
clear.
developer.
Developer.
Right, for the DEP.
Oh, for the DEP you had
Well,
to...
like I say, I know specifically a DEP permit requires notification to abutters.
Okay.
Now, whether the towns, I can't say with 100% certainty.
I'm probably not in a butter, but numbers 26 and
I
so
think you might
forth
be,
are...
actually. Roger,
Can I address that?
please.
And I should introduce myself. I'm Roger Freeman. I'm on the light board. I'm also a solar power developer, and so I'm sort of here to help Paul and Hingham Light think through these issues. I won't be involved. My company won't be involved. I'll just be providing advice as in my role as a board member. And I don't know specifically, but in every town there's zoning bylaws that will govern any building of a structure. So this will go before the planning board at a minimum, and there'll be a process that will involve notification to abutters and review of the plan.
It's not that I'm not happy to look on the town's website every day, but I just can't keep doing it.
Yeah, no, for sure, I'm nearly certain that will be the case. The town will have an extensive process, if I know Hingham.
And I would, and I'm not surprised, that you're interested in having that. So maybe as part of our deal with the developer, we require them to notify abutters to show the plans. I mean, that could be
That would
part of
be
the deal,
good.
right?
Because it was only through
It'll be under
the...
the town of Hingham regulations will require it, so it's...
Only through the courtesy of one of the selectmen who thought to call one of the residents that we, not that we aren't following town meeting, but
For this meeting
it's
tonight,
hard.
you mean?
Well, even for the selectmen's meeting last week or 2 weeks ago when it was, because you just, it's hard to follow every single day and every single hearing. So anyhow, thank you for the hearing.
Phil Doster at Linden Ponds. The question on why do it if it's such a minimal kind of contribution, I thought you started out saying this is a pilot and we can learn from this. Getting the legalese, just listening, you go through all that. You put a lot of work into that. You wouldn't want to have a massive project to put all this together for the first time. It would be high stakes.
Correct.
So I think the idea of having a pilot that you can learn from it and benefit, and the town can get comfortable, the citizens and the technology and all that, I thought that was the idea of this as a pilot.
Well, the word pilot in this has a couple meanings. Pilot in that, like you say, suggests we'll start small and figure it out. The pilot, the meaning of the word pilot that I was using, payment in lieu of taxes, pilot.
Okay.
So, it will be a pilot at many different levels.
Right, okay. Very good. Who else wants to?
I'll take it.
Mike?
Thanks. I know a lot of us here are really interested in alternative energy, and I'm wondering how we speak to our friends who might not be as to what the benefits would be for them as other Hingham residents and taxpayers. Because you said the rates are not necessarily going to go up or down. Hopefully they'll be fixed. And it sounds like, rough estimate, $500,000 to the town to hit other budgeting reasons. Is there anything else we can get to get more people on board, for
Sure,
example?
a bigger percentage of our portfolio would come from non-fossil fuel sources. So currently, right now in the light plant, about 15% of our total portfolio comes from non-fossil fuel renewables. And if I include nukes with non-fossil fuel, it goes up to about 45. So, our percentage of our portfolio would increase with the addition of this solar array. And for those who don't check out the HMLP website every day, they, we just signed a deal for a solar array in Central Mass. And we've just bought into the production, us and 5 other munis, bought the total output of another wind farm up in Maine. We have hydro. I mean, we have about 15%. And, you know, the company Energy New England, of which HMLP is part owner, you know, part of my instructions to them is, I want you to be out there beating the bushes, looking for more renewable, both because it's the right thing to do, and you know it needs to work financially. And these deals are all working for us. Roger?
Could I address that very quickly?
Sure.
So, apart from the fact that it's the right thing to do and that our planet is facing a challenge of reducing the amount of carbon we're putting into the atmosphere, the science is clear, the planet is warming up. So we all have a responsibility, I believe, to do as much as we can reasonably and financially soundly. And so the approach that Hingham Light has been taking is to be increasing renewable energy, reducing our carbon emissions in a way that's financially prudent. And I think the proof is in the pudding. You're seeing the rates have stayed low and significantly below what the increases that you've seen at the investor-owned utilities. But it underscores the point that the investor-owned utilities are subject to laws requiring them to buy renewable energy, and we're not subject to those same laws. And so the decisions that we make as a community are going to dictate what amount of renewable energy that we have. And I think it's a real strong testament to the work that Paul's been doing for the Light Board and the Energy Action Committee, that we're adding lots of carbon-free energy and doing it in a way that's not raising rates for everyone. So I think there's a very strong global reason to do it, but also from a sense of financial prudence, carbon is being priced into the energy sector as we speak. Now that there's laws being passed to put a price on carbon as you generate electricity. And so right now we don't pay at the gas pump and we don't pay at the electricity bill for that renewable energy, the cost that the pollution is imposing. And those prices are going to be baked into the energy prices that we pay. And so by increasing our renewable portfolio standard and the amount of renewables that are going into our system, we're really creating resilience and adjusting for the future when that price of carbon will be built in. So it makes financial sense to do it, particularly at a time when we can do it at a way that's not adding substantially to the price or creating any inflation for our energy prices. So I think there's economic reasons, even if you somehow don't believe in science and the impacts that global warming is going to have on our planet, just on a pure financial basis, the rest of the world is moving in that direction.
Anybody else? Well, if you think of anything between now and tomorrow night at 7 o'clock and then 7:55, you can have 2 more shots at it. Thank you. Thanks for everybody for coming out.
Excellent job in answering a lot of the questions that came up a couple of weeks ago.
Good.